All right. Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about why changing our systems is going to require that we individuals go through an identity crisis. And why going through an identity crisis, when we as individuals really challenge the things that we have been taught that we are supposed to value, that we are supposed to become, that we are supposed to do, and all of these things, it's going to lead to systemic change. That both of these things kind of work together. That, yeah, when we are the type of people who are saying we want a more fair, a more equitable, a more safe environment for more people in our culture, in order to make that happen, we are going to have to question our own identities and our own values and the ways in which we were brought up to believe we can find goodness and we can be who we're supposed to be. And then, like I say, when we're just doing this internal work, when we're doing the work to question our thoughts, to question our perceptions, to learn how to value and love and support ourselves for how we actually are, this is going to make us the kind of people who are working towards creating a better world for all of us. Like, it's these two things go hand in hand. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Sorry, I'm adjusting to try to be in the center of two cameras. Anyways, okay. So before we dive deep into that, I want to just say again, as a reminder, if you are following this content and you are really resonating with it and it's working for you in the sense that you're following these videos and you're doing the mindset stuff and all of that, and you want to take this path a little bit deeper, you're feeling like you want a step-by-step program for how to actually do the self-love path, you want a group of people who are also doing this work to have access to so that you don't feel like you're doing it alone. And if you're feeling like, yeah, this is really resonating for you, you really get it, but you don't know how to make it practical, and you don't know how to make it so that you can actually like access these inner states of safety and this capacity to problem solve and this capacity to connect with your spirituality in a real way that's not just spiritual platitudes and all that stuff, come join the mystery school, because this is literally exactly what we're doing in the mystery school every single day for every day of the year. What you get when you come on to the mystery school is 3 1-year each self-study programs that's all about taking you deep inside yourself so that you can like question the ways that you have been shamed and that you have been guilted and that society has taught you that you are wrong and bad and there's something flawed and not good with you, so that you can heal that stuff. You can come out of that. We can come out of the addiction to self-help and self-improvement, and we can transition into a state where we're really learning how to support ourselves, where we're learning how to discover what we actually want and what we actually need and what is actually good for us. And then we're learning how to actually apply those things and to find those things and to live those things even within our greater culture. So the school is designed to take you from being really focused in your inner world and healing your past and integrating all the things that happened to you and learning how to navigate your emotions and navigate your thoughts and question your perception and all these really important foundational skills that we need, that then works our way into seeing society and systems and where we fit in the context of everything, so that we can actually design lives for ourselves that work without spiritual bypassing, and so that we can be a part of a positive change. That's what the whole course is designed to do. It's designed to take you from all the way inside to like, I have no connection to myself, I don't know how to support myself, I don't know how to be on my own side, I don't even really know why that would be helpful, to learning all those skills, to learning that emotional mastery, to learning that perceptual mastery, thought mastery, all the way through to, okay, I can navigate my life now, right? And it's not about finding perfection. None of us are ever going to be perfect. It's not about any of us ever having perfect anything. It's just that we can find a lot better, and we can do a lot better, and we can feel a lot better over time with these skills. And that's what the school is designed to do. So if you're interested in taking a real deep dive on this self-love path and you're wanting some extra support and guidance for how to do that, check out the Mystery School. You can find the links in my Instagram link tree. You can find them in the YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. And that's my little sales pitch for the day. Okay, so now let's go back to what we were talking about today. So again, we need to understand that so much of our self-identity and how we see ourselves and how we judge ourselves, the things that we celebrate in ourselves, the things that we shame and guilt and blame in ourselves, the things we feel like we need to fix about ourselves, the things we think we need to become, all of this is happening within the context of a society and systems and governments and religions and families and a whole bunch of outside factors that are not just what we think and what we are and what we decided for ourselves in our logical mind is the right way and the best way to live on this planet. And so much of the self-help and the personal growth and the spirituality industry is focused on everyone just really focusing in on themselves. It's focused on everyone saying, you know, I have these bad habits, I have these addictions, I have these scapegoats, I have these weaknesses, I have these flaws, and these are the things that are wrong with me. And there's no questioning of why we even think those things are wrong and bad. There's no real questioning of, is that really even a bad thing about you, or does it just not fit into culture and all that stuff? We start with we already know who and what we're supposed to be. We have these bad habits and these things that are wrong and bad about us, that are shameful, that are guilty. And there's just the assumption that we're correct about that that's true, that we should feel bad and guilty and shameful about these things. And then, like I say, the personal growth, spirituality, self-help movement is all about how do we fix and change you? What are you supposed to do? What are you going to do so that you manifest different things by changing your thoughts and changing your emotions? How can you change your morning routine? How can you change your thoughts? How can you change the way that you do what you do in life so that you can be better? So that you can be better at fitting into culture, right? And so if we look at that and we think, okay, so I can be better at fitting into culture. And there's no questioning a lot of the time of where that culture comes from, who that culture serves, who that culture benefits, who that culture hurts and harms, and in what ways that culture might not be good or sustainable in an actual reality context. Or if there is a questioning of culture or society or what we're trying to live up to, a lot of the time with that, there's very little nuance. There's very little, here's what's actually working about this, here's what isn't. It's a lot of just society is wrong, society is bad, and we need to completely extricate ourselves from all of it. We need to rebel, we need to be different, we need to swing wildly the other way, and that's the solution, right? And that it's all very much focused on this individual, I am changing myself in order to align with what culture expects of me because culture is correct, or I am to change myself to become the rebel who's doing the, rebellious things that all the other rebellious people are doing in lockstep with everyone who's doing that. Yes? And a lot of the time, when we look at these things that we think are wrong and bad and shameful and guilty and broken about us, we do see aspects of self that do cause harm, right? Like that are really actually, like hurting our bodies, or where we're reactive in some way and it harms our relationships, or we're sabotaging ourselves in some way in our work or with money or with whatever it is. And there's just such a shallow assessment of that. It's literally just, yeah, that thing is clearly bad. That thing is clearly causing pain, and you just need to fix that about yourself, right? As though we're saying every adult human arrived in their adulthood with all the information and all the capacity and all the know-how and self-esteem and tools and access and resource to just be super successful in the systems that exist. And that those who aren't doing that, those who are not having that success, right? You don't have the money you want, you don't have the relationships you want, you don't have the health you want, whatever it is that our culture and our society tells us these are the things you're supposed to have, and if you don't have these things, it's just there is some flaw in you that needs to be fixed. Yes? And then the spirituality, self-help, personal growth world comes in and says, don't worry, we will give you all the tools and all the answers to fix these broken things about yourself so that you can become who you were supposed to be in culture, or we will give you all these tools so that you can rebel from culture completely. You can just, quit your job and move to a homestead and only eat organic rabbit and never watch Fox News ever again, and that's what being successful is. So we can see that there is just a lot of assumptions. There are a lot of baby being thrown out with the bathwater. There's a lot of just very deeply not questioning really anything. It's just, it's all good and I need to become that. And there's just something broken and flawed within me that I'm not that. Or it's all terrible and I need to get rid of all of it and rebel from all of it and do some totally other thing. Yeah? So is it any wonder that when these are kind of our two options for supporting ourselves when we are in pain, that a lot of us stay in pain forever? That a lot of us just end up living these lives where we're constantly on the self-improvement train, where we're constantly trying to fix ourselves, to change ourselves, to do something that we view we should be doing that's different than what we're doing, and where we're constantly in the state of just feeling like we're failing and we're broken and like we're not doing what we should be doing, right? Or again, we kind of fall into this other way where we start to feel like we can't trust anything mainstream, we can't trust anything that any normal person is doing because we start to see it all as evil or all as corrupted. And again, we start to kind of get into this place where we become very judgmental of anyone who's doing anything that's like could be considered mainstream. We become, instead of being people who, because I do believe that a lot of the time people get into seeing hey, Queen Sissy, no, not right now, not this live, but we can talk about talking together on a different live. I have a thing that I want to say today. But thanks for the offer, and we can talk about it. You can send me a DM about talking together. Okay. So we get into this place where we are hypercritical of others, and we kind of find ourselves going into a more us against them, us versus them. I have the right information, I have the good information, and everyone who isn't doing what I'm doing and who isn't seeing the world the way that I'm seeing it and who isn't following all the things that I'm following are just wrong and bad and stupid, and they don't know what they're doing. And we start to see them as enemy. We start to see other people as our enemy when they are ideologically living in different ways than we are living. And in my opinion, right, when we're just constantly trying to fix ourselves so that we can fit into the system better, or when we get to this place where we're all rebellion and we're just judging everyone who is doing anything normal or that we perceive to be a part of the evil plan, we aren't moving ourselves towards a better society. We simply are not actually creating something that is going to be beneficial for others, rather, or for ourselves, right? Rather, we are just caught in forever self-help and self-improvement, because the reality is the way the systems that actually exist right here, right now, operate do not support humanity. That is true. It is absolutely, absolutely true that there are so many aspects of the cultures that we live in, right here, right now, today, in the modern world, in our families, in our religions, in our governments, in our medical institutions, in our education systems, that are very much set up so that people who are already at the top of the system, who have the most money and the most power, get to maintain having that money and that power. And everyone else is working and being exploited and being hurt and being harmed by the system, and then being told that their reaction to that pain, that the ways that they are responding to the ways that society is unfair, is their fault, is a flaw in them, is something wrong with them, right? You're a criminal, you're lazy, there's something wrong with you, that you can't work the way everyone else is working, there's something wrong with you that you didn't get educated properly, you're making bad choices, you're addicted, you're scapegoating, you're whatever, and that means that you are bad, you are weak, you are wrong, and you don't deserve support, you don't deserve understanding, you don't deserve rehabilitation, you don't deserve help, you don't deserve for us to question maybe these systems aren't working. It's all about you need to fix yourself. And that is incredibly painful, and we have to acknowledge that so much of what we feel shame and guilt and blame about in ourselves is coming from not being able to live up to the societal expectations that have been given to us, that to live up to them is to cause harm. Okay? And when we can start to understand that so much of the time, our shame and our guilt and what we perceive in ourselves to be failures is not real reality. We were conditioned to believe those things about ourselves. We were conditioned to believe terrible, horrible things about ourselves so that we would be constantly susceptible to never questioning the system, to never questioning how things are done, because we're constantly in a state of questioning ourselves to the point of trying to fix ourselves and trying to change ourselves and trying to fit ourselves into this system, thinking any amount we can't do that is something wrong with us, instead of taking a step back and being able to say, what if it's the systems? What if it's the things I'm trying to fit into that hurt? What if I'm coping and numbing and scapegoating and self-sabotaging to try to cope with the pain of trying to do what I'm supposed to do? That's a big part of it. So when we're constantly trapped in the I just need to fix myself, and we're not questioning systems, and we're not questioning why we can't keep up, we're not questioning why we're responding to the systems the way we are responding to the systems, we're not questioning why, even when we measure up to the system, even when we do what we should do, even when we succeed, we aren't happy, we aren't satisfied, there's pain. In order to get there, we have to cope and we have to numb and we have to be, disconnected from our emotions and our feelings and our humanity in order to win. We're not questioning that. And that's part of the problem, right? But again, swinging way the other way, where we become people who say, okay, everything is wrong and everything is evil. And then we start to work in ways where we think that just doing the opposite is the answer. And we think that just being contrary and doing something different than everyone else is doing, or we think, posting about what we think we know on the internet and saying this is how it really is and this is what's really going on, and everyone who doesn't believe this and everyone who doesn't follow in line with this, there's something wrong with them and they're stupid and they're sheeple and they don't know what they're talking about. And And then again, we become people who are against the people. We are against society in just like normal people. Instead of seeing that even if there is levels of indoctrination that are making people do things that are contributing to the harm that we're seeing in society, that are contributing to the people in power continuing to have their power, they are not doing that because they are stupid. They are not doing that because they are weak. They are not doing that because they're delusional and there's something wrong with them. They are doing that because they are trying to survive the best they can within the systems that exist. The people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, the people that we work with, the people that bag our groceries, the people that we bag groceries for, the people that are in our offices, the people that we're meeting online, we are all a part of the same group. And as hard as it is to really understand that and to see that, that is reality. We are all part of the same group of humanity that exists on this planet right now. No one that you are going to have an interaction with on the internet or in real life is a part of the group who is specifically working to keep our systems the way that they are. Everyone you know is just doing the best they can to try to survive in the world that we live in. Okay? That's the first thing. And like I said, as hard as it is for us to wrap our minds around that idea, that the individuals we are interacting with aren't our problem. They aren't the things that we need to be angry at and to be fighting against. But rather, we want to start to move towards having that compassion for ourselves. First, learning these tools of self-love and these tools of actually being able to have compassion and curiosity for ourselves. Because when we do that, when we start to learn how to show up for ourselves in our bad behaviors, in our shame, in our guilt, in our self-blame, in our scapegoating, numbing, coping, all of these things that we think are wrong with us. When we start to first make that shift to showing up for ourselves in those things with kindness, with compassion, and like I said, with curiosity, with really looking for, okay, where is the pain? What am I actually feeling? Where did I learn that I have to be this way? Where did I learn that these parts of myself are not okay? These parts of me are unacceptable. Why is that true? Why might it be that I was taught that? Who does it serve for me to feel like this part of myself or this action that I want to take or this way that I want to live is wrong and bad or sinful or shameful or guilty? Right? When we look at our self-sabotage and our coping and our numbing, instead of saying, what's wrong with me that I do this? We can start to ask ourselves, where am I in pain? Where did that pain come from? How is my behaviors of coping and numbing and scapegoating and self-sabotaging helping me deal with that pain in a way that I don't know any other way to deal with it? Where is the innocence in my behavior? Where is the innocence in my life choices, right? Where is it not that I just became an adult with perfect awareness and perfect capacity and a perfectly clear intellectual mindset, and then am just choosing to fuck my life up because I suck and I'm just not trying hard enough? Where is that not reality? Again, where did I learn to be the way that I am? Where did I experience not being okay, not being safe, not having my needs met, that made me adapt in a way that I now do these things on a regular basis, because that's what my body learned I had to do in order to survive. It's not to say that this means that we keep these habits forever. It's not to say that the ways that we're doing things aren't causing harm, and that we aren't going to have to change how we are behaving if we want something better. It's an understanding that in order to change that behavior, to like really be able to change that behavior so that we're not just white knuckling our way into just trying to do something different for the rest of our lives, is to first understand where it came from. And then to understand how we need to support ourselves, what kind of support we need to get from others, what kind of support we need to get from therapy or the mystery school or emotional mastery or all of the tools that are available to help us retrain our bodies, retrain our nervous systems, retrain our way of being, so that we can be more in alignment with what is good for us in our behavior, right? Where can we start to learn that, again, so much of what we're doing and so much of how we live is not because we're just making logical choices and our logic is messed up, but because, again, we learned on a nervous system level, this is how I have to do things in order to be safe, right? Like when we can get that whatever we were programmed to believe was how to get our caregivers to love us in our childhoods is like the foundation for most of the things we do now as an adult. When we can start to see that like that wasn't logical, someone was telling you this is how it should be, that there was observation of what we thought our caregivers wanted and needed, and from our perspective, them being literally gods to us, who had access to everything, who could take all of our pain away and make all of our pleasure come to be, and that the only thing that mattered in terms of them giving us pleasure and taking us our pain away was our behavior. And so we perceived, when they did this, it's because I was doing this or that. When they didn't do this, it was because I was doing this or that. And we were learning this on a nervous system level. And that became the foundation for how we saw ourselves, for how we saw what we were supposed to do and what we were supposed to be and what is good and what is right and what is wrong. It became the foundation for our natural instinctual responses to life. So not necessarily that all of us are just making logical choices all the time, but seeing that a lot of what we do in life is a natural instinctual response to a stimuli from deep in our nervous systems that is bypassing our logic. You see that there's so much more complexity to this. There's so much more complexity to why humans behave the way that we behave. And then from there, right, looking to how our perceptual filters were filtered as we were growing up. When we were in that state of trance from 0 to 7. And again, we were just observing and observing and observing what our caregivers were doing and what the people around us were doing and what we perceived they expected of us. And then we started to slowly come up with reasons for why those expectations were the best thing and why we had to be this way and why we couldn't be that way. And again, it was tied into our survival. It wasn't just, oh, it's good to be what mom and dad want me to be, or it's bad to not be that. It's, I have to do this in order to be accepted by them, and in order to be alive, in order to get what I need, I have to be accepted by them. And then we started to take that out, and we projected that onto our friends and onto our teachers and onto our governments and onto all the other authority figures in our lives. And so then, again, right, seeing how our perception then started to say, okay, these are the things that are beneficial for me to fit in. Because that was the first program we ever got. Fitting in equals survival. So these are all the things that are beneficial for me to fit in. These are all the things that are not beneficial for me to fit in. And any part of myself or any part of what I would want to do that doesn't align with what gets me acceptance and approval is now a part I'm going to have an existential relationship with. These are going to be the parts of myself that I see as bad and wrong and flawed, and that I'm going to try to fix and change and get rid of for the rest of my life, because I see them as an existential threat to my survival. And all these things that are not part of who I am, that I don't like doing, that I don't actually want to do, that don't feel good to me, but that get me acceptance, are going to be things I feel guilty and shameful and shitty that I can't do for the rest of my life. I'm going to constantly feel like that fish who can't climb a tree, and like there's something wrong with me, and I'm broken and I'm shitty, that I'm a fish who can't climb a tree. Because we're not questioning. We are not taught to question. How did we even decide what was good and what was bad, what was right and wrong? Where did this even come from in our families? Where did the what I am supposed to be and what I am not supposed to be come from in our religions, in our governments, in our financial institutions, in our education systems? Where did the values that we are all trying to live by come from? So like just one example, the value of productivity being our culture in the West's number one value. You are as good as what you produce. You are as valuable as what you produce. You as a human being, your life is measured by how much you can produce within our systems. That is basically the main value of Western culture, productivity. And at this point, we have all been indoctrinated into the idea that our systems are correct about what is valuable in terms of production. Right? We've all decided, yeah, like doctors and lawyers and CEOs and shareholders, their labor is more valuable than the labor of janitors or teachers or people who bag our groceries. And therefore, these people who occupy these positions of productivity deserve to have so much more access to the things that they need to survive and have safety than all of these people do, based on what they do for work in society. These people are going to have a living wage. These people are not. And that's fair. That's like, first we need to take a step back. Why do we think that that's fair? Why is it okay that both of these people can put in a full day's work? And if we were to make the argument, again, in real reality, if we lost lawyers versus if we lost janitors, how quickly would society notice the lack of labor from not having lawyers versus not having janitors, versus not having people to bag groceries, versus not having teachers? How much would society lose its capacity to function if we no longer had singers versus no longer having people who drive our produce around? Right? These people don't make a living wage. But I think if any of us think about it for a second, we would say, yeah, society would suffer way more if all of these people disappeared than if all of these people disappeared. So already we can start to say, okay, this value system that I've been indoctrinated into, that I am now measuring myself against, might not be in alignment completely with how reality functions. This value of productivity and what it is that our culture currently values in terms of we are going to give the most amount of access, resource, and safety to the people who occupy these productive positions of society, then we are going to give these people who occupy these productive positions of society. That might be a totally flawed way of looking at the world. And then again, to even take it a step back further, to say, what is even the point of productivity? Why is productivity a value to begin with? And if we, again, really question that, we might come up with, productivity is really only as good as it is producing something society needs. So long as it is producing something that is beneficial for society. Yeah? But when we get into states where we are producing things that are not beneficial for society, that could easily be argued as being harmful for society, when we get into a state of producing for the sake of producing, just producing and producing and producing and producing, we start to see that that production starts to become a sacrifice. What has to be sacrificed so that we can continue to produce at these exponential rates? What nature is being sacrificed? What ecosystems? What animals? What humans? Who is being exploited? Because in every single case where we see overproduction, production that goes past what would actually just be needed for society to function well, we see that something has to be sacrificed. Something has to be exploited. Usually multiple things. In order to create the excessive amount of wealth that we have pooled in the hands of these CEOs and owners of the means of production and the richest of rich of society, the only way that that is happening is through the exploitation of the working class, is through the exploitation of animals, is through the exploitation of nature. The only way that we can have the excess that we have in the top echelons of society is via the sacrifice of many, 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 many other people. And then there's a twisting of it where we say, if you are in a position where you have to work 3 jobs because all of your jobs don't pay a living wage and you're not making ends meet, and it's because your value is less than everyone else. It's because your work is not valuable. Even though, in real reality, if you stopped doing your work and everyone else stopped doing their work, society could not function. So this idea that your work is not valuable simply doesn't align with reality. Because if we took it away and you stopped doing it, usually an essential service would disappear at the same time. Why do we call it an essential service? Because it's essential for society. But again, we're brainwashed into perceiving that that is okay. That it is okay for teachers and people who work at fast food restaurants and people who work these low skill jobs to have less than a living wage because their work isn't valuable. But again, what? That doesn't even make sense because their work is valuable. We do need it. If they stopped doing it, just because anyone technically could do it doesn't make it non-essential, right? Like there's that justification of like, it's low skill, anyone could do it. So what? How does that make any difference to whether it is valuable or not. Just because anyone could do it and you don't have to go to university to be able to do it doesn't mean it's not valuable and that it's not essential and that it doesn't deserve to be paid fairly. Right? And again, we could go into just all the problems with the fact that education is gatekept and the fact that if you want to have these higher level jobs, you have to already have money. You have to already be valued by society, usually because of the place you were born in society. It has nothing to do with you or your work ethic or what you've done or what you haven't done. Like, we are so indoctrinated. So that's why I say, when we start to peel this back and we start to really question ourselves, why am I struggling? Why does life hurt? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? We're usually going to find it's not that we're flawed, and it's not that we're shitty, and it's not that we're broken. It's because society and culture has totally messed up values. It's because what we have been trained we have to do and we have to be and we cannot do and we cannot be are not in alignment with real reality. And so we're constantly trying to fit ourselves in because that was our first nervous system program. In order to survive, we have to fit in. So we're constantly trying to fit ourselves in to the system that is designed not to serve most people. And then again, the big problem being, when we start to wake up to this a lot of the time, and we start to see this for how it really is, rather than having more compassion for people, rather than wanting to create systems where more people can be safe and more people can get what they need, and so that they are less in a state of fear, so they are constantly being indoctrinated into these systems and not being able to question them, we swing the other way and we become super judgmental and we think everyone's a stupid sheeple, and we try to kind of just like cut our losses and save ourselves by taking more for ourselves a lot of the time. We get to a place where we think, well, right, I'm just going to continue to fight for myself against the people, instead of maybe it's not the people I need to be fighting against, it's the system. It's not the average person that I'm seeing and the person I need to like yell at in a Facebook group. But again, we need to question systems. We need to question why we are this way. Why are we doing things the way that we're doing them? And this is why I say again, when we really get into doing this work for ourselves, we are going to be the kind of people who start to wake up to the systems, and rather than just rebelling and rather than making it a new thing where we have a new enemy in the people, we start to say, okay, no, first things first. Where can I find my enough and not take anymore? Because I really, really think this is one of the biggest steps of individual power we have. When we say, I am not going to continue to be a part of these systems of excessive consumption and excessive production. And I think that this is like the first existential crisis most of us are going to have on this path. That we're not failing to produce as much as we should be producing and to do as much as we should be doing, and we're not burning out because we're weak and we're shitty and blah, 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 blah. That we are a human with humanity, and that what we are being asked to do within our systems to be successful is against humanity. It does not work. Again, it is productions and consumption for production and consumption's sake, which makes no logical sense. We need to start to be the kind of people who say, no, production and consumption should be measured as valuable compared to how much they support life, not life being measured as valuable in terms of how much it supports our systems of excessive production and consumption. Because that's what we have right now. Life is measured as valuable or not valuable based on how much it serves the systems of excessive consumption and production. When in any reasonable, logical human society, we would say the systems of consumption and production are only as valuable as they support what has value, which is life. Right now we have it totally flipped. We are trying to make ourselves valuable to a system instead of saying, no, the system should be valuable to us. The people, all of the people. Not just me. Us. So again, where can I start to no longer hate myself, shame myself, blame myself, be able to fall into these traps of my pain and my not being able to measure up in the system is my fault and a flaw in me? And we have that existential crisis. What if fitting in and getting to the top of the mountain and all of that stuff is never going to get me what I want? It's never going to make me happy. It's never going to make me safe, above and beyond giving me a reasonable life. Luxury, wealth, status, these things are dangled in front of our face as the answer to all of our pain. Because on some levels, okay, in real reality, in our system, the way that it's set up, it does provide safety. And it does provide the things that make life possible to enjoy. So we don't want to say, you can just be impoverished and just be fine. Because that's not, money doesn't make happiness. No. We can't be in black and white thinking. The real reality is enough equals safety. Reasonable access to food, reasonable access to shelter, reasonable access to work we can actually do that is productive for society, reasonable access to community, reasonable access to education, reasonable access to all of these things that should be an absolute given in Western society where we have billionaires. That is enough. That is a foundation for a reasonable human experience. We have the capacity to create that. But it means that those of us in the middle class have to stop playing into excess. We need to take what we need, and then we need to be a part of the redistribution. In the sense that we don't continue to take more than we need. In that when we have more than we need, we turn around and say, okay, where can I be of resource to people who inherently don't have what they need because of how society is set up? When we start to be able to value ourselves enough that we no longer get goaded into this idea that we need to be constantly fixing ourselves and changing ourselves and improving ourselves and up-leveling and getting more money and more status and more wealth and going forward and fixing ourselves and fixing this and pursuing perfection, we will start to realize where our enough actually is. And that makes you the most renegade person possible. Because when you can't be manipulated into forcing yourself into more, when you can't be manipulated into constantly navel gazing and feeling like you need to fix yourself and change yourself and grow yourself and improve yourself and change your thoughts and level up, and you are going to become aware of systems. And then you are going to be the kind of person who's the worst threat to the system possible. Because number one, you will start to embrace more parts of who and what you actually are. And this does destabilize the system. The more people out there who are like, I don't care. You can be upset about my sexuality. You can be upset about the way that I dress. You can be upset about whatever it is that you're upset about with me. So long as I'm not hurting anybody else and I'm just living my life, you can't shame me into trying to fix myself or change myself. Or, because again, so much of the time, this shame that we have for all of the parts of ourselves that don't fit into culture lead us to being more productive and more consumptive. It works for the culture to have us hating ourselves, to have us hating any aspect of ourselves. The fact that who and what is right and good is so tightly gate-kept should be a clue to us that this is something we need to really in ourselves be like, no. Who is benefiting from me being in a state of shame and guilt about myself all the time? And how is it driving me to continue to participate in systems that are not good for me or anyone else? And again, that's not to say that there aren't people out there whose real identities and to accept themselves does put them in danger, because that does exist. We live in some pretty shitty systems right now where people can't express themselves and be safe, and that's a real reality. So for those of us who can express ourselves, and we might get verbal attack, we might get people upset with us, we might get it that, we're not accepted, but we are still okay. We can still have a job, we can still have food, we can still do all the things we need to do. We're not unsafe. We need to start doing that and standing up for ourselves. And like I say, becoming less susceptible to buying things to change ourselves, to buying things to numb the pain of constantly having to hate ourselves, of trying to fix ourselves and overproduce and make up for it. We need to step out of that. That's part of the self-love path. And then again, we will become the kind of people who are activists for more people to have that. We will start to see it is not fair that some people cannot be safe in their identity. And we will start to be the kind of people who fight back against that system. Do you see what I'm saying? It's always going to ripple out. When we start to have these identity crises in ourselves, why do I hate this thing about me? Why am I doing this? Why am I in pain? What is actually going on here? What would actually lead to me being able to have a better life? That is naturally going to ripple out to seeing the systems for how they are. And we are going to be less interested in fighting amongst the people and more interested in fighting against mindsets, for sure, educating, being a part of, supporting, and supporting and being a part of movements where more people have their voices heard and can get their needs met. And again, right, it's not about the government taking more and doing more taxes. We need to start to say, no. Living wage is redistribution. The more people having more money for doing what they do in society. That is the answer. That is what redistribution is. Less of us who do not need to be over-consuming and overproducing. We have to have the existential crisis of why do I think I need to be these things? Why do I think I need to do these things? Who are these systems actually serving and who are they harming? And how can I start to disengage from that in a real way? So it's not necessarily about, going on a homestead or exiting society. It's live in society, contribute to society in an actually productive way. Be a part of the change. As much as you can. Don't take more than you need. Make room for others. And then how can you be supportive of others? Having more than just not enough. Having enough. Do you see what I'm saying? That this whole message of us having our existential crises. Why do I hate these parts of myself? Why do I shame this stuff? Where was I taught that this is how I have to do things and this is the right way? And is that really even true? When we start to have these identity crises, why do I value what I value? Why am I going for what I'm going for? Why do I believe what I believe? We are going to take our own individual power back in the ways that we can. And then that is going to turn us into the kind of people who really can do something different on this planet, who really can make a change, who really can see the systems for how they are and what needs to happen so that things can be better for everybody. We will stop being in a state where we're constantly trying to change and fix and improve ourselves so we can focus on the bigger picture. And it will lead to us having a nicer life experience because we're not trying to change and fix and things that aren't broken. We're not constantly feeling like we need to consume more or do more when we don't actually need to. We will be able to enjoy our lives more, to regulate our own nervous systems, to start to work from regulation instead of working from anxiety and not enough and already feeling like we're behind the 8 ball all the time. When we can start to do that, we are going to be a part of the change. But so long as we're continuing to hate ourselves, so long as we're continuing to truly believe that we are fundamentally flawed, we are always going to be vulnerable to the systems that say, yeah, you are fundamentally flawed, you are fundamentally broken, and you need to produce more and you need to consume more. Or we're always going to be vulnerable to becoming the kind of people who are judgmental and mean and shut down to the people who are just trying to do the best they know to do. And we don't want to be either of those two things. We want to have compassion for everyone. Again, we don't let ourselves get taken advantage of. This doesn't mean we agree with everybody. This doesn't mean that some people don't have really shitty takes that we need to push back on. It's just that we don't see it as attacking that person. We see it as attacking the mindset. We see it as attacking the perception. We want to change the way we see things, not just trying to force people to see things how we see them. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, so do we have any comments or questions before we wrap up? Because again, this is big work. That's why the mystery school is 3 years. And it starts with very individual work, and it works its way all the way to the last curriculum being very systems focused. Because it's all of these things. It's a whole journey. And if we take it and if we do it naturally, we will find that we become system challengers. And so much of it starts with finding our enough and not taking more than that. And seeing how much of a difference that is going to make in our culture. When we cannot anymore be manipulated into overdoing it, when we don't need to. So much of the excessive consumption and production that is happening that requires exploitation loses its power. And we stop fighting each other. And we start to say, no, we are on the same team. We are all on the same team. How do we support humanity? Because we're all on the same team. Yeah? Okay. So yeah, no questions? Awesome. Thank you for coming to my talk today. I hope it was helpful. And if you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, concerns. And yeah, until I see you again next week, probably. Come join the Mystery School. We're having our next meeting on Wednesday. We meet every month. I'd love to have you if you want to take this work deeper. And if not, I'll just see you in my free content some other time. All right. Have a great week.